Hi, and welcome back. In this section, we'll be discussing refurbishment, renovation, reconditioning, revitalization. All these terms are restoration, which is truly unrivaled when it comes to sustainability and protecting our planet and precious natural resources. Restoration and preservation of surfaces and materials is value engineering at its optimum, especially when incorporated with best-in-class green products and systems that are designed to withstand aging and the breakdown through the test of time. It is the optimum solution to take the old and combine it with improved materials, making for a better-than-new restored surface. That better-than-new can take old, worn-out surfaces, obsolete building materials, and restore them to being superior than when they were originally produced and installed. This sounds unrealistic, thinking how can you make something that is diminished and reached its end of service life cycle better than when it was originally produced? It's simple. If the products you use to restore the old worn out materials are superior to the existing ones they are covering, that's when the new combined system becomes better than the original one. The improved layered system becomes a composite, taking the old diminished characteristics, enhancing them with upgraded and stronger qualities. This composite combined layered system also works exceptionally well, especially with obsolete solid hazardous building materials such as asbestos, lead-based paint, and solid PCBs, polychlorinated biphenyls. Taking what was good about the original materials, like with asbestos and its incredible fireproofing qualities, or lead-based paint for its durability, and then combine it with a sustainable green coating system, you not only retain the superior characteristics of the original product, but you also instantly stop the release of toxic materials from those products into people's living space and the surrounding environment. This is especially important when those hazardous materials sometimes cannot be removed and replaced due to the expensive cost, location, and indirect consequences of a disruptive, invasive, and often high-priced removal and replacement process. This is the case when, due to the complications of full-blown asbestos removal, where most often full containment is required, shutting down all other activities, including income-generating production. Depending on what the income-generating production is and what type of work cycle usually dictates the action to be taken. Some establishments operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and would be more adversely affected than the typical 8-hour, 5-day week work facility. Shutdowns at those facilities, especially full-time ones, can cause devastating and financial losses, being extremely detrimental and costly. Sometimes it's not even possible to lose that significant income, especially when there is a much better and simpler way to stop the release of hazardous materials over costly and invasive full-blown removal and replacement while not disrupting or stopping production. This disruption of production can also incur significant costs from the relocation of personnel and content during the expensive and often unnecessary removal and replacement process. In our daily lives, we take hazardous materials, toxic substances, and safely live with them all the time. Just look at the worldwide use of electricity. If not properly managed, will cause electrocution, fires, and other devastating damage. Another potential hazard managed without harm or injury is the worldwide use of gasoline in our vehicles. We safely strap ourselves and our loved ones into what is potentially a highly explosive moving container. Yet we constantly safely control and manage both of those potential hazards in place all the time. We never give much thought to them and even consider their secure, everyday use as standard and normal. There are many other examples of hazards that we constantly utilize in our daily lives that are also safely managed and controlled. They are sometimes outright necessary for maintaining and improving our lives. The normal use of in-place management of those familiar hazards is so widely accepted, they are simply taken for granted. Seeing how that is the case with those commonly used potential hazards, it then stands to reason that it can also be applied to the safe and acceptable in-place management of other hazardous materials such as asbestos and lead-based paint. Even if those materials are breaking down and being harmfully discharged into the environment, that deterioration and release can be instantly stopped, and the exterior of the offending materials can be quickly restored and rejuvenated while being safely sealed. Containing and revamping those materials to better than new with an improved, superior, reinforced exterior becomes a simple restoration process. Now let's look at how roofing that may also contain toxic materials can benefit from a revamping and restoration, as opposed to a costly and sometimes offensive removal and replacement. How you can take a worn-out roof and quickly restore that to better than new. The first thing to acknowledge is that many roofing materials may work well for waterproofing and insulation when they are first put in place, and yet they start to diminish and break down almost immediately after that installation. With that breakdown comes a release into the environment of what are often harmful and toxic components, such as with asbestos and coal tar-based asphalt materials. Even though roofs' perceived limited service life cycle is taken into account when designed and installed, that doesn't account for what short and long-term negative environmental impact that deteriorating material has on the environment and surroundings as it disintegrates. Part of the negative impact from typical breakdown is that those materials can release harmful substances into the local habitat, contributing to standing and groundwater contamination. This, along with any other substances that make up or have been placed over a roof, such as asbestos, lead-based paint, PCBs, etc., can also contribute to the pollution of air, land, and water as they age, disintegrate, and continually break down. With the standard practice of removal and replacement, not only are the decaying materials continuing to break down when in service, but once removed and transported to a landfill or dump, they continue to disintegrate, persist with their offensive and harmful contamination of the environment. This disposed roofing material can also correlate to groundwater contamination and CO2 emissions as the scrap materials rot and decay. The damaging release of excessive CO2 emissions is proven to greatly contribute to climate change, global warming, and the continued contamination of our water supply is something that has long been needed to be addressed. Also, when the removed materials need to be replaced, they require more precious natural resources for their reproduction and installation, which again can have a negative environmental impact. All these adverse effects with roofing and many other mentioned materials can be simply avoided by restoration and in-place management with green coatings and casement. Another logical area that benefits greatly from restoration and preservation is historic properties that are a direct link to our past and can be national treasures that hold many cherished memories and valuable history. Those precious buildings and structures need extra special attention to restore and preserve their character while protecting surfaces. Restoration and preservation with the right green coatings can allow the building's historic character and detail to be broadcast through those coatings so not to lose their notable form and particular highlights, especially on trim, crowns, and molding, along with other features that accent and bring out their significant past. The right green coatings can also be tinted to match historic colors, which also adds to the overall benefit of restoration with them. So instead of the undesirable process of removal and replacement, which incurs such negative and expensive consequences, it's best to avoid all that unnecessary, harmful impact with a better, logical, beneficial option, which comes with the demonstrated and proven history of preservation, restoration, and in-place management with sustainable green coatings and casement.